Gary today with Ben, and Gareth is inside beaving away with some silicon, and this is your 8-bed HMO project?
8-bed HMO, all en suite.
All en suite.
Love these little lights. This was bespoke, this got fitted yesterday. Anything to do with plumbing or just the build, it's Gareth. Yeah.
Well,
I'm like, the thing is, like, you know, there's pros and cons obviously working with your partner, but you've got to have your position.
Yeah, roles and responsibilities. Yeah.
And the way I break it down is Gareth's the now, the present, which I am just not. I'm always the future. So I'm always like looking for the next deal, speaking with investors.
We're in the plant room with the boss, Gareth, who is PM for this project. Talk me through the central heating system, because it's a bit different.
Yeah, exactly that. So it's really important that we fit a central heating system that's going to use less gas and save us money. So we fitted something called an X-Plan, which is a heating system, which is a sort of boiler that runs the heating system at a low temperature and then fires up to a high temperature to heat the cylinder up really quickly within 20 minutes. So then the boiler will then go back to the central heating system, run at a lower temperature, say 40 degrees, and then when it needs to demand for heat, it will then pick it up. Yeah.
Nice, okay.
Yeah.
And so you were telling us before about the type of boiler you're using.
Yeah, okay, so the boiler we're using, it's an intergas boiler.
Yeah.
And it's probably one of the best boilers in the market that modulates the amount of gas and the amount of heat needs. So if a radiator calls for heat, the boiler will know how much heat to send to that radiator and then modulate the gas needed. Compared to the old school boilers, you call for heat, the boiler will work at full pelt, meaning you're going to use a lot of gas, so then it just swaps over, it just modulates way better compared to other boilers.
And just for all the sort of people who are like me watching, when you say modulate, is that just another word for controlling the gas?
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, the gas valve then reduces the amount of gas which goes into the burner. So then obviously you can use a lot of gas or then modulate and reduce it right down if needed.
Nice, okay. And then in terms of like the pipework and stuff for the whole heating system and the radiators, you were saying it's a mix between plastic and copper?
Exactly that. So it's something called a secondary hot water loop. So what we didn't want is the top floor to open the hot tap, and then obviously it's going to take a long time for all this hot water to go to that hot tap, so you're going to lose a lot of obviously energy.
Yeah.
So we fitted a secondary hot water loop. So there's a pump here that then constantly just sends water around the property at all times. And the important thing is that needs to be heavily insulated so it doesn't lose any heat. So constantly we've got hot water flowing around. So then when the top bedroom opens the hot tap, within seconds they'll get instant hot water, which is going to save a lot of money again by not wasting all this hot
inertia.
Exactly that really. So but that needs to be in copper. Then the rest of it is in plastic.
Okay, and was that a cost decision for plastic?
Cost decision, time decision as well. As long as it's fitted properly, the plastic will last long term. And a lot of old school plumbers and gas engineers don't really like using plastic because they're sort of stuck in their ways. But plastic is as good as copper as long as you use it properly and it's all connected and clipped in. You can't go too wrong with it.
Nice, okay. Let's go and have a look at some radiators then, mate. Because I was super interested in the system on the rads. So this is the sort of one of the communal areas. Do you want to just talk us through the controls on that?
Yeah, exactly that. So each radiator has got its own zone valve on there. So we wanted a central heating system that can be balanced easily. So if one of the bedrooms get cooler quickly, we can push the heat to that room. And then same again, if the other room's really warm, it will then just balance it correctly. And then as well with these, especially with the Honeywell system, we can limit the amount of heat that goes to it as well. So they can always control the amount of heat that comes into the bedroom, but we'll then cap it at a certain amount. So we've done a heat loss calculation on the property and we've worked out how much heat loss happens to every single room. So then we've sized the radiator to the heat loss and then we're going to put in the correct amount of heat. So in theory at all times, it should be balanced correctly. And the good thing about these radiators as well, it will notice, about the TRVs, it will notify us if there's an instant cold air coming through. So if they've got the heating on and the window's open, we'll then get notified for that as well. So it just gives us more control. If a tenant tells us that our room's a bit cooler, we can then push the heat to that room, hopefully keeping everyone happy as well. But the main thing as well is just get every single room heavily insulated. Without insulating all the rooms, it's sort of pointless getting all these nice, good systems because you're just going to be burning money away, really.
It's going to be getting out the window, isn't it? Yeah,
exactly.
So, and is this controlled by your phone or?
Yeah, by our phone, yeah. So there is a sort of control sort of iPad, it looks like, for the Honeywell that is here, that we are going to leave. But yeah, it's all going to be controlled by our phone as well. So we can just have full control. If a tenant says to us they're cooler, or if we know that their bedroom is actually losing heat, we can then just pump the heat where it needs to be, really. So yeah, it will definitely save us a lot of money, and it just gives us control as well.
Nice. And on a broader point, I know you've got your separate plant room there. Have you got any tips for a plant room for people when they're doing HMOs?
Yeah, I suppose the tip ideally is, I mean, in an ideal world, to get the height in there to get the correct amount of cylinder. But I suppose the only tip is to invest in the controls and the boiler, really. That is the major tip on there. It's pointless buying a good boiler, which you get told by a certain manufacturer. But the main thing is the controls. The controls are where you need to spend the money on as well.
And that's where you've gone for the Honeywell system.
Yeah, and where I've said about, and also as well the priority hot water, so which is what it's called. So then the boiler will know if it's working on the cylinder or it's working on the central heating system, and that's where we run the central heating system at low temperature, like an air source heat pump, and then we put full gas and energy to heat the cylinder up really quickly.
Nice. And in terms of, we were talking to Ben before about ceilings getting dropped and insulation, is that been everywhere in this project?
Yeah, everywhere. Yeah. So we have gone overboard on the wall insulation and the ceiling, more for obviously to keep the heat in. Soundproofing was a massive factor as well.
Yeah.
We want obviously all the tenants to make sure that they feel like they're in their own space and they can't really hear next door and everything else. So it was sort of a win-win situation. It was like, well, why wouldn't we spend a tiny bit more knowing that our tenants can be happier, they can be warmer as well, and our gas bills are going to be way cheaper.
So interestingly, what was this from an EPC point of view when you purchased it?
This was a D.
A D.
So yeah, we're actually going to get that done in the next 2-3 weeks. So we're quite keen to see what it's going to look like.
It's going to be interesting because that is I know it's been kicked, the sort of can's been kicked with EPC stuff, but it's going to come back, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it feels like for you guys on this, this should be.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, there's not much heat loss at all, really, and especially in all the bedrooms now. Even when we started to insulate it back in sort of April, there was sort of a cold snap, and even then we had no heating, and the house was sort of really warm as well.
Yeah.
And that was before we put carpet in, obviously put the plasterboard everywhere. So yeah, no, I think we've done a good job on the insulation.
The thing as well with future-proofing properties is they can change, like what you just said, like they can change things.
They can change the rules,
they can change like fire eggs, like the whole AOV window thing. So even do you know like the AOV windows?
Yeah.
So we didn't need one on this property, but that could change. Like fire eggs, the rules could change. So we've fitted the electrics. So in first fix, it would cost an extra £400.
Yeah, about £400.
But all the wires are on the top floor in the walls to that window in case they change the rules, so we can just take the window out and put a new window in. So it'll safeguard us in the future. But yeah, like with the EPC thing, like I know they've taken things away, but they probably will bring these things back.
It's coming back again.
Yeah, 100%.
And it's a shame really, because like unless you're doing a project like this in a property like this, it's never going to get to that. No. If you were to do this as a normal buy to let, there is no way you'd do all what you've done here, is it? And it just again, it's a short-sighted thing from the government, isn't it? They're just going to lose a load of stock because it's worth it when you're doing this, but this has been an expensive project, hasn't it? You put the purchase back into the project.
I've had a bit more. It's worth it.
For this, But if you've got a 3-bed buy to let,
not a chance.
There's no way.
Which is why it is so hard with buy to lets now.
Yeah, to make money. But who loses there? The tenants, because there's less stock. Because people think, it's not worth it.
Which is why it's so nuts. I mean, every single person we know them, and we know with our rentals, you put something up for rent, and you get the amount of people that is crazy, complete nuts. But there's just nothing on the market.
Yeah, no supply.
Yeah.
Nice. Any other top tips for PM managing these sort of projects?
Yeah, probably don't skimp on the build itself. I think people overlook the actual internal side of the build. They want sort of on the cheapest point, and they won't put maybe insulation in or the cheap out on the controls, where that's probably as important as the visual looks as well. So I would say that's the main thing, just make sure the job's done properly. Save money where you need to save money, which is important, but then spend it in the right areas as well. And just find a good build team. Find a builder that's open-minded and can see your end vision and not stuck in their ways too much, really.
Yeah. And also, like for scalability, every box we tick, it just means that we can hopefully be hands-off.
Yeah,
because there shouldn't be any problems. I mean, obviously there's going to be problems, but we're hoping there'll be as little as possible because we've tried to tick every single box. And yeah, it comes at extra cost, and it's difficult, you know, trying to make these things happen. But I think that it will benefit us as we grow as a business and as a company.
Yeah. How sort of receptive were your build team to your sort of central heating system setup?
They're intrigued. No, they're going to use that now on their next central heating system.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, they were sort of they're picking my brains on that as well, because especially the secondary hot water loop as well. You see that on big commercial properties and sort of commercial work, but not on a sort of a domestic house that's been converted. So that was sort of new to them that they were going to use as well, really. So yeah, we've made a really good relationship with a builder, which I think is really important as well. So once you do have a builder that you trust,
100%.
It goes miles, really.
And even like we fully trust them now. So, you know, if when we do move back down south and Gareth's not going to be on the tools, we'd be so happy to just completely leave the project in Phil's hands.
Give it to him,
100%.
And something me and Ben were talking about upstairs was this. Projects like this, you learn loads of different bits of property, so planning, you know, the sort of scale of the refurb and that sort of stuff. You know, moving forward, you see yourself going into like splitting flats and that sort of stuff. Do you think any of those projects are going to be any harder now you've done this?
No, I suppose not any harder. I think every property has its own sort of obstacle you have to deal with. But I think once you've done a project to like this scale, you know you can get over everything as well. So yeah, I think we're quite keen in a couple of years' time if going to sort of building new builds.
That'll be the next learning curve.
Yeah, to go from
Gareth's really keen on that, like acquiring land and
going from there. But I think
what are you talking? Building from the ground up?
Build up, maybe it's like a rent-to-rent system. I've got a really good connection down south. That's really good connection down south. Who's a builder that's sort of interested as well. So stuff, it would be quite good to do partnership with them as well, and especially with his wife's obviously interior design as well. So between all four of us, it might be a good opportunity.
Skills,
and that's another reason why we are going back down south, because we have so many more connections there. You know, even though I am from the north, we don't know anyone in Manchester. So we now do. We've got an amazing build team, which is why we really want to carry on investing here. But we also want to take the model and do it down south because we just know so many more people down there. Make some roots, I think.
Yeah, exactly that, really. And also as well, a major thing to always think about is pay your builder on time as well. Being a tradesperson is so important that if they've done the job, pay straight away. Don't sit on it.
Don't delay it for a couple of days. Like, if you get an invoice, literally within 10 minutes, if we go to an invoice, it doesn't matter what we're doing, out for dinner, out for whatever, we pay it. We pay it.
But that's trust though, obviously you have to trust your builder first. Don't just pay a random builder for the sake of it. Like, make sure they've done the work, but if they've done it,
and get work done up front. You know, we Phil did a full week's worth of work before we paid him. You know, and we pay weekly.
Right, okay.
We decided to break it down weekly. I just don't feel comfortable. I just prefer to pay weekly. It takes me 2 seconds, you pick up your phone, it takes you 2 seconds, but we just prefer it weekly, and it's no skin off Phil's nose, so he was happy to do that.
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously you guys you sort of use your own funds for this refurb project as opposed to development finance, which is a slightly different payment term for builders, which, you know, we've spoke to a couple of builders. Some of them were sort of conducive with it. You know, they've done development finance before. Some other ones were like, oh mate, no idea. Don't know. Do you know what I mean?
They have to know what they're doing, don't they? Because there's loads of... Phil luckily did. But we spoke to a few builders that weren't totally sure about that. Because they have to tick quite a lot of boxes, don't they?
Yeah, so depending on the lender you use, they'll normally get a asset manager or a QS out, and then they'll split the project into 3 phases. So like phase 1, QS will come out and sign off everything that's been done. And then the funds then get released and then he gets paid. So it's more like 3 or 4 or 5 separate stages. But each time you do a drawdown,
and they have to have all the things done.
So it's more expensive, but from a build point of view, it's maybe lower risk because someone else is checking.
And it's probably quite good for you because you know these things have to be done.
Which is maybe, obviously, you've got the experience of PM in this project, so it's a little bit different, and it's like anything in property, there's pros and cons. It's both sides. Obviously, it's more expensive, but if you've not got the experience and not there every day,
it sort of safeguards you as well. Sort of protects your money.
And also, like, so many people are put off by expensive loans and bridging and development finance, but if you can't afford to do it without, what's the other option? You just sit on your cash, or
don't do anything.
Or you put it into something and it pays you a salary. You know, so I'd take it any day. If we need to.